Republican Seniors of Minnesota, a group of seasoned seniors that learn and discuss issues important to all Minnesotans, featuring guest speakers with traditional conservative values, plus Republican candidates at all levels, pledging strength and optimism. We believe in and advocate for the principles of personal responsibility, economic prosperity, peace through strong national defense, and limited, sensible government. Republican Seniors of Minnesota. It's not the years in your life, but the life in your years.
Good morning. Welcome and thanks for coming this morning. It's good to see you. By the way, in case you didn't know it, there's just 37 days until the vernal equinox, i.e. we're going to have spring coming next month. I'm Terry Flower, Chair of the Republican Seniors of Minnesota. Can you all hear me? Yeah. All right, good. This meeting is being live streamed today on our website and YouTube and Rumble. Well, we understand there are more folks interested in starting watch parties, and that means we can spread the word of the issues that we're interested in. There's even a new watch party starting in Wisconsin. Of course, they'll have to work with the Wisconsin Republican Party, but we got a lot of the same issues. Where? I think it's Hudson. Okay, by the way, you can get a cap just like the one I'm wearing. All you have to do is, in the back table, check with them right after the meeting, and you can take one home with you. By the way, it's a good Republican color, and they'll think you're wearing a Trump hat, and at least you're a Trump Republican. And live stream viewers, you can get a hat too. Just email us in, and as if you were sending in a question on live stream, and we'll work it out. Let's see. Let's join together in our opening prayer, and Barb Leonard will be reading the invocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
We have to stand up for this?
No, you don't have to.
We needed it.
I want to take my hat off, but it got stuck here. Okay.
You're okay.
Can you get it? I'm just going to leave it on. I'm a woman. I can get by with it. The Lord will forgive me. Bow your heads with me, please. Gracious God, please bless us this election season. Give us guidance and wisdom to endorse the right candidates, and blessings to sustain us during this season. Give us the courage to trust in our political servants, that they will serve the people and this great nation. Give us the strength to endure the hardships of campaigns. Lord, we face hardships, but we know we are not alone. You know our freedoms come from you, our Creator, our Sustainer, and our Savior. In Jesus Christ's name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Barb. Excuse me, I just find out where we're at now. Okay, one, we'd like to acknowledge our active duty and veteran military members. If you would please stand, as well as retired police officers, firefighters, first responders, and everybody else. So will you all please stand, and as you're able, join together in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Isn't that a beautiful flag? Okay, we've got some announcements, and I was added some more, which is great because there's a lot of activity going on. Okay, this Thursday, the day after tomorrow, you can meet the Republican gubernatorial candidates at their first real public forum following the caucuses, and this takes place at the Town and Country Club in St. Paul from 6 to 8 p.m. And this is the Metro Republican Gubernatorial Candidate Forum. And these candidates will be making their case for endorsement. Lisa Demuth, Patrick Knight, Brad Kohler, Philip Parrish, Kendall Qualls, and Kristen Robbins. And the cost is $75 per person, but you'll get to see them and meet them right then and there, face to face. And there are tickets available, mngopcd5.org. By the way, that brings up an important question. Would you like to have a straw poll next month? Yes. Can I see hands if you would? Okay, if you'd rather, hands down, thanks. Thanks. We'll go ahead and have a straw poll next month. There are enough hands up, I'd say at least half. Okay. By the way, while we're at this point, we usually celebrate birthdays. We should recognize that this is the birth month of some of our really precious leaders. Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, and let's see, there was another guy born on February 6th, Ronald Reagan. So see, greatness is close to us here, folks. And I understand that the Metro Republican women are having a Lincoln Day high tea this Saturday. And if you're interested, their guest speaker talking about Lincoln and freedom, their guest speaker is David Racer. You can go to metrogopwomen.org and check that out. Registration is already closed on that one. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I do have. Yeah, I'm not done with the announcements. Also have. Let's see. There's on February 26th. That's still this month. It's a short month. Senate District 51 Republican fundraiser. It's $20. Retired Hennepin County Sheriff Richard Stanek. Doors will open at 6:15, and the program starts at 7. And there'll be a Q&A about 8 o'clock. And that'll be at 7700 France Avenue in Edina. Pardon? No. He's retired sheriff of Hennepin County, but he brings a lot of knowledge and expertise to share with you about the issues. He's got 40 years of public safety experience. And I think we. Right, one other special town hall meeting on fraud. That's February 12th, the day after tomorrow, at 6 p.m. That's right here. It's called Focus on Fraud, a legislative panel discussion, and this will be Walter Hudson will take our side of fraud, and Steve Elkins will take the DFL side. That ought to be interesting. I don't know how it'll go, but I don't see how you can be against trying to make something happen with our fraud problems. That time again? You betcha. 6 to 8:30 p.m. February 12th. And if you need any details, I'll have them here, and I can share that with you after the meeting. Okay, it's time to recognize those of you who are celebrating a birthday this month. Anybody here celebrating a birthday? Yes, sir. 93. Congratulations. 93 years young. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Harris, and I am now in my 70s.
Good for you. By the way, you only have to be 50 to be a senior Republican. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I do want to emphasize that you're welcome to stay here after the meeting. You can meet with any of the speakers or candidates that works out, and you can talk with them. We have the room until noon. And if you have a brief announcement to make regarding the topics that are interested of the Republican seniors, we'll do it during our 2 cents for 2 minutes renowned project. Let's see. People asked me personally, we'd like to hear from our state party chair, Alex Plechash. Is there any chance he could tell us something about what's going on? Well, he came here for you, and he's our first hour speaker.
Thanks, Terry. I think he overplayed that was overwhelming wanting me to be here today. So let me start by saying what an amazingly engaged group this is. We have a number of affiliates in the party, and none, I would tell you none, come close to the excitement and energy that you all have. So hats off to you. Anecdotally, I'd also like to mention, Terry talked about this great hat that he's wearing that you all could wear as Republican seniors, and he made a note of saying that they were good Republican colors. I would also like to point out that they're very good Marine Corps colors, being scarlet and gold. So I'll just jump right into it. So one thing I want to start by talking about is the caucus. The results that we had were far better than we had hoped for. We had hoped that we might get to 15,000 caucus goers around the state based on early indications. We ended up with about 19,000 statewide. That's pretty darn good for us. Yeah, and that was 8,000 more than 2024, so think about that. We went from 11,000 to 19,000 in 2 years. One thing I'd like to point out to you all, if you're looking to do things, and like I said, this is a very engaged group, we definitely are looking for election judges. Also poll watchers, but election judge is a really important thing. Just by way of hands, has anybody here been an election judge before? Look at that. I mean, it's far higher participation that I normally see. Well, for those of you who haven't been election judges, I would ask you to consider it and talk to your colleagues here who have done it before so you can get a lowdown on what that's all about. It is volunteer, but you actually get paid for it and you're trained for it, and it's a very, very important thing in our state for election integrity. During the night of the caucus, we had and I don't know if you knew this, but we had a real-time results tag that you go to get the results as they were coming in. Very similar to what you see on Election Day with the different polls. DFL did not have that. We did, and we were hoping to get all the results by 10 p.m. that night. That was probably unbelievably optimistic, but we did basically have it all by the next day. The DFL is still struggling to figure out what they want to say about it, because they basically had one candidate, of course, the anointed one, and yet there were more people that voted for others or undecided than voted for her, and it's a real embarrassment for them, and I don't think they want to put that out there, but that's the reality. We had 12 candidates in that straw poll. You can go to our website and find that result. That 12 candidates now is down to 10. I will start with, we had 13 candidates at one time. We are now down to 10. I think you all probably know that Chris Madel dropped out a couple of weeks ago or so. I'm kind of disappointed in the way he dropped out and what he said, but he was out. Then you probably know that Scott Jensen announced, I think it might have been even just this morning, might have been last night, I lose track of time. He dropped out of the governor's race and is now throwing his hat in the ring for state auditor. So that's a pretty significant change. And just in case you hadn't heard, really, really sad, tragic news is that Jeff Johnson dropped out as well. But the reason he dropped out is just horrible. I talked to him on Sunday just after I learned. But in case you don't know, his daughter was murdered on Saturday. And he and his wife, who's a medical doctor, in fact, were there, and they're the ones that discovered the body. And it looks like the husband, their son-in-law, is the one who did it. So it was a murder-suicide kind of thing. So Jeff is out, and tragic reason for that. And the Senate race is also getting a lot of attention. We had, over the course of time, as many as 11 candidates. We've only lost one net. We're down to 10. But the most exciting thing about that race is we've got a pretty well-known celebrity that threw her hat in the ring with Michelle Tafoya. We've still got the endorsement process to go through. We got a pretty good slate of candidates. Some I think are particularly good. So we'll see how that turns out. But with Michelle Tafoya in the race, it brings national attention to the U.S. Senate race here in Minnesota. I will tell you the news cycle. We were so much on the aggressive offensive against Governor Walz with the whole fraud thing. And I was saying a couple months ago, so be careful what you ask for, because we were asking for him to resign and step down and all this stuff. And, well, we got it, and he did step down. I think his mind, he's probably stepped down prematurely, because at the time the news cycle was all about fraud. You couldn't turn on any news channel pretty much at any time of the day, and you'd be hearing about fraud in Minnesota. It just kept getting revealed over and over about different things. And he felt the pressure, and he finally stepped down from running for re-election. But now we've got Amy Klobuchar, which arguably is maybe a harder candidate. Although she's got her flaws, we've got the good ways to attack her. But the news cycle went from fraud to ICE and Operation Metro Surge, and that has dominated the news now for 3 weeks or so. And you're not hearing about fraud anymore because the press wants to support that narrative. But I predict that news cycle will also end. That's not a long-term thing. I don't know if it's going to be in a week or 2 weeks. Of course, now we've got different news cycle, but I do believe we're going to get back to talking about fraud, and that's what Minnesotans really care about, because that's got a long tail on it, and it means real money to real voting Minnesotans. So as soon as we can, we're going to jump right on that bandwagon again, and we will tag Amy Klobuchar with that as well, because she was complicit in that. Just a couple more things. I would say that in addition to volunteering to be an election judge, which is paid and trained, we could certainly use volunteers in our GOP office for things like PCR mailers and things like that. So if you have some time and you're inclined, please let us know. We'd love to engage you at our corporate office. And then the last thing I'll leave you with you, and I don't know where this is going to go, but I just put out a note just this morning in a big, pretty powerful rebuttal to the Star Tribune and the article that they published this weekend with Amy Klobuchar above the fold on the front page, prime real estate for news, and it was so terribly one-sided in their views. So I don't know if they'll publish what I wrote, but we pushed back pretty hard on that. So just know we're paying attention, and the party's there to support you all and our candidates. So with that, I'll turn it over to Terry again. Thank you.
Alex, could you tell us just a little bit, make sure they can get the PCR for last year until April 15th? And
I will say yes. I don't personally get involved in that, but yes, if you're still owed a PCR refund from last year, if you haven't sent it in, please send it in. Of course, we're in a new cycle now, so we need to make sure that we know. I see a hand in the back here. I saw your hand first, yeah.
Is President Trump coming to Minnesota?
The question was, is President Trump coming to Minnesota? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, a lot of times the administration, when they send key figures, now if the president comes, I think I'll probably get a heads up on that, but a lot of the people who do come, like Tom Holman as an example more recently, we don't get a heads up on that because, and I don't know exactly why, you'd think that out of courtesy we'd kind of be that they would let us know. But, and maybe Ron would know, he's an attorney, he's better at this, but my suspicion is that they want to be very careful that they don't have the administration interact with the party and make it seem as if there is a violation of the Hatch Act, because we can't really take advantage of that. That might be the reason, I don't know, but I'm not aware. I would say the president is probably going to show up here at some point, but we don't control his schedule, and I'm not aware of him coming now. There's another hand, yes.
Alex? John? Okay, thank you. Alex, thank you very much. That's very, very helpful to hear news, especially from your position. And I hope you'll come back maybe in a couple of months and update us on what is happening, because things are happening very fast.
I will tell you, I'd be happy to come back here anytime. You just have to extend the invitation.
Great.
And compared to most of the drama I have to put up with day in, day out, this is a very welcome respite from all that. So happy to come here anytime.
Now, here's my question. I understand that the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota is leading the fraud investigation. Is that correct? And number two, the second question is, I understand that Joe Thompson, who is an assistant attorney, he and 13 other people in that office stepped down. And I don't know why. I'm curious if you can tell us, enlighten us on that.
The only thing I can say about that is what you said is factually true. He did step down. I don't know if it was 13 attorneys. I heard it was some number smaller than that, but they didn't check with me, and as they wouldn't. And at least the way the press reported it, it looked like it was in response to what they felt was misguided pressure from the administration, but that's just what was reported. I don't know the actual facts. Maybe someone else here would know that, but what you said is factually true. Joe Thompson and a few of the attorneys at least did step away. My understanding is the U.S. Attorney's Office is still there investigating fraud. Who is doing it now in place of Joe, I don't know.
He's starting his own law firm.
Yeah, the comment was that he's starting his own law firm. I don't know that. He may, yeah. Yeah.
Another question.
Question, yeah.
Did you have any idea that ICE was coming to town?
The question was, did we have any idea that ICE was coming to town? I would say no. You know, again, they just did their thing, and there's a lot of points of view about that.
You did. Well, I emailed GOP, Minnesota GOP headquarters. Mm-hmm. Yes, of a training that was taking place in South Minneapolis that I went to. And on a Sunday afternoon, at a Lutheran church.
And this was training for what?
How to fight ICE. It was all about being a protester. And so what did I do 2 weeks before? I sent an email. I live in South Minneapolis, got the email from the little neighborhood association, and I sent the email to GOP headquarters and to CD5, never heard anything back. I went to it and I was astounded at what was happening.
Yeah.
So check your emails. And I think that Republicans, I think, need to take more of a active verbal response to some of what we're seeing on the streets. It's
Well-
very, very unfair. If we are the party of law and order, that's what I'm telling people. I'm a Republican and I support ICE 100%.
Well, thank you for that. Not to, yeah, thank you. Not to make any excuses, but I personally get hundreds of emails every single day, so I can't see it all. If it goes to chair at MNGOP, I guarantee you I will not see it because I don't get that. That has to be screened before I ever see it. Because there's literally hundreds. But we knew that was going on. We didn't know in advance that ICE was coming, but we did definitely know about all the protests that were being staged and the training that they had, and it was very, very organized. You'd have to be an idiot to think that it was just grassroots, spontaneous. It is very organized. There are obviously paid protesters amongst them who that's their job, is to cause chaos, and they're doing it. But then there's a lot of what I'll call useful idiots that get swept up into that emotion. And so most of the people you see get swept up, but they're useful idiots who are just doing it because they want to do something. But for what it's worth, I know that my media blitz has been amazing the last few weeks. I have been interviewed by every sort of media, live, recorded, whether it's print or radio or TV, just nonstop. I've had national CBS actually set up in my home twice, 2 different times, 2 different reporters, and that was national news. Newsmax, I think I've appeared on about 7 or 8 times. And so the word is getting out. You may not exactly see it all, but we're hitting back as hard as we can, and the press is wanting to talk to us. At least they were until the news cycle went to...
I saw some of your interviews.
Yeah.
They were very good. But the one thing is that you don't hear anybody talking about I support microphone.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The one thing you don't hear, and this is, I want to get a little table with a sign. I support ICE. Well, actually, I did say that to some protesters as I was going home with my Starbucks coffee. And if they could have, they would have pounded me. And the ICE people took off.
Yeah.
In the ground, they would. But
yeah, it's
you don't
pretty
hear
one-sided. There's no
anybody-
doubt. There's no doubt it's one-sided. That's not surprising. It's not new. It seems to be more in our face recently than other times, but that's the reality of what we have to deal with. We're law-abiding people. We don't shout. We don't do all this crazy stuff. That's not in our DNA. It seems to be in the DNA of the DFL. So I don't want to dominate here. I know we got keynote speakers and other folks here, so let me turn it back over to Terry. Thanks again.
Thank you for coming, Alex. We look forward to seeing you in a while. Folks, Alex did mention that Jeff Johnson's dropped out of the race. Could we just have, you don't have to stand, let's just take a moment of silence and pray for Jeff Johnson and his family. God bless him and his family. Thank you. Yeah, and I do want to emphasize that PCR from last year is you're still eligible until April 15th, And then, of course, you can file for this year as well. Carol? We have some business that we'll be taking care of in April, and Carol's going to explain that for you.
Good morning. I'm Carol Brumwell. As your past chair, my sole constitutional responsibility is recruiting people to serve our organization. This year, we are recruiting for delegates and alternates to the congressional district conventions as well as the state convention. Any CD that has at least 10 paid members in our organization is entitled to 1 delegate, 1 alternate. Right now, CDs 2, 3, and 5 are eligible to have delegate alternate. I think 6 is very close. So if you're from one of those CDs, please let me know if you're willing to serve as a delegate or alternate on behalf of Republican seniors. You cannot have 2 slots. So if you're already expecting to be a CD representative from your BPOU, please don't run for our slot or don't run for your BPOU slot. Similarly, for state convention, our entire organization has 2 delegates, 2 alternates. So if you're willing to serve, it's up in Duluth. It's the last weekend of May. You will be responsible for all of these. You're responsible for your own transportation, hotel, and registration fee to the convention. But let me know if you're willing to serve on our behalf at the state convention. We will have our elections April 14th for our organization. Let me know if you're interested. I'll be at the back table. You can also, preferred method is to send an email to republicanseniors.mn@gmail.com. That way I've got the information. Our nominating committee is a committee of 4. We'll conduct interviews end of February into March. I need to have your interest no later than April 7th. That's a week before our election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, and now we have some of our active candidates. Ron Shutz, running for Attorney General. Maybe we'll get rid of that moron that's in the office right now.
Thank you, Terry. As Terry said, my name is Ron Shutz, and I'm running to be the next Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. I am a lifelong resident of Minnesota. I grew up on a dairy farm in the southwestern part of the state, outside of a small town called Adrian. I went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship. I went to Marquette University in Milwaukee and got a degree in mechanical engineering. And then I went to law school at the University of Minnesota. After law school, I served 4 years in the United States Army because the Army was gracious enough to pay for my college education, so I owed them 4 years back. It was one of the best 4 years of my life. I was in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. How many of you have seen the movie A Few Good Men? Okay. Tom Cruise played me in that movie, okay? And the Marine guy says he was Navy. Yes, he wore a blue uniform, I wore a green uniform, but otherwise we looked exactly the same. After I got out of the military, I went into private law practice, spent most of my career at a 200-lawyer law firm in downtown Minneapolis, where I served as chairman of that law firm from 2019 to 2024. I have a long list of of legal accomplishments, and I'm not going to go into them today, but I would urge you all, pick this up in the back of the room. I've got one of these, and you can go to my website, and you can learn more about me. Let me touch now, well, one other thing I need to mention. I married my high school sweetheart, Janet, who's over here. Best thing that ever happened in my life. And we have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. The 3 grandchildren live here, and that's among the many reasons that I'm running for Attorney General. I see all the problems we've got here, and something needs to be done, and I decided I was going to step into the arena and do it. So let me touch briefly on a few of the issues involved in this campaign. Primary issue, of course, is fraud. We all know that the fraud is rampant in this state, and Keith Ellison has turned a blind eye to fraud. And in fact, some of you have probably read about the meeting he had in December of 2021 with several people, a few of which became defendants in the Feeding Our Future fraud case. And he was meeting with them because they were complaining about how the Department of Education and the Department of Human Services was treating them in their applications for grants. And he thought that was awful, the way they were treating them, and he was there to help them, all right? So he has turned a blind eye to fraud. He's even helped some of these fraudsters. And what happens when you turn a blind eye to fraud and you don't do anything about it? You get more of it. And so the fraud kept coming and coming and coming, to the extent that Minnesota is now a destination. It's a destination for fraud tourism. That's just how bad it is. Minnesota is such an easy mark that people will come from as far away as Pennsylvania to come here and commit fraud. Another issue in the campaign is support for law enforcement. Keith Ellison is a charter member of the anti-police movement. Back in, again, the fall of 2021, he campaigned for an amendment to the Minneapolis City Charter to eliminate the Minneapolis Police Department, replace it with the Department of Public Safety, which could, if necessary, and that's the exact language out of the Charter Amendment, have police officers. He campaigned hard for that. But even in Minneapolis, the liberal city of Minneapolis, that was a bridge too far, because the citizens of Minneapolis rejected Keith Ellison's campaigning for that by 56% no vote. That's how radical this guy is. Absolutely radical. But perhaps the most radical thing that he is pushing, and the most radical part of his agenda, is he wants biological males to play on girls' sports teams. He has doubled down on that. He has issued an opinion out of the Attorney General's office saying that allowing biological males to play on girls' sports teams is mandated by the Minnesota Human Rights Act. That is wrong. It's wrong as a matter of legal analysis. And one of the first things I'm going to do when I'm elected is I'm going to withdraw that opinion and issue an opinion saying that's absolutely not required, right? And then one final thing, he brags repeatedly, brags all the time about how many times he has sued the Trump administration. That guy has about 30 lawyers involved in suing the Trump administration. But you know where he sues them? He sues the Trump administration in Rhode Island, in Massachusetts, in Washington State, in New York State. He doesn't sue the Trump administration in Minnesota, where a Minnesota judge and a Minnesota jury can decide those issues. He sues anywhere but Minnesota, and he's got more lawyers by several multiples working on cases against the Trump administration than he's got pursuing fraud in this state. That guy needs to go, and I need your help in putting him on the unemployment line. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I sure looking forward to seeing a change in that Attorney General's office. See, we just got an email saying that Philip Parrish was not able to make it this morning, so Okay, at this point, we're going to go into our 3-minute stretch before our featured speaker.
You're watching Republican Seniors of Minnesota. We'll be right back.
I walk down Main where the people once met, where front porch swings still held the sunset. Now screens light faces, but eyes look through, trading handshakes for another point of view.
I remember when words were soft and clear, not sharpened swords we hurled from fear. We'd gather round with guitars and grace. Now it's filters and fire in a digital place.
Oh, I long for the days when the talk was slow, when a man's good name meant more than a show. Now it's likes and shares in a hollow glow, but I still believe there's a sea below.
We glorify the wild and the cruel, call it freedom while we drown in the pool. Our children fed on fantasy and fame, don't know the soil but they know the game.
The newsman used to just tell it straight. Now he sells the storm and stirs up hate. Truth's been traded for a polished spin, and we cheer the noise as it pulls us in. Oh, I long for the days when the talk was slow, when a man's good name meant more than a show. Now it's likes and shares in a hollow glow, but I still believe there's a sea below. But I saw 2 kids kick a ball in the street, no phones in hand, just dusty bare feet. Their laughter rang like an old church bell, and for a moment all was well. So maybe there's hope in the crack and the break, a sprout in the ruin, a soul wide awake. If we dare to look up and reach a hand, we might still heal this broken land. Yes, I long for the days when the talk was slow, when hearts beat strong and the truth would grow. Let's turn from the hollow, let the real light show. There's still a fire, let it burn below.
Okay, thank you for cooperating with our 3-minute stretch. Sorry we got extended there for a minute. You noticed just walking out in the back of the room is Senator Eric Pratt, candidate for CD2 Congress. If you want to talk to him, you can catch him in the back. He's just waving hello to you. Yeah. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Rachel Paulose, the managing attorney of the Upper Midwest Law Center. Now, Rachel is an American attorney. She was nominated by President George W. Bush and unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate. So she's serving as a United States Attorney. She was the youngest person ever and the first woman to lead the District of Minnesota and the first Indian American woman to be nominated by a president and confirmed by the Senate for any federal position. So in 1994, she earned a BA summa cum laude from the University of Minnesota, where she was a Phi Beta Kappa and a Harry S. Truman Scholar. In any case, I'd like to introduce you to Rachel. I want you to understand she graciously came here this morning. Remember, Ken Beal was supposed to be our speaker and unfortunately had to bow out. And she came in to tell us what's going on in the Upper Midwest Law Center.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good morning. We're so excited to be here. And so I'm also a fourth-generation preacher's kid. I understand that Mr. Beal was going to speak to you about the Judeo-Christian heritage in America. So we can talk about that afterwards, maybe. I also am accompanied by our senior appellate attorney at the Upper Midwest Law Center, Nicholas Nelson. And Nick will never tell you this, so I will. He is a superstar. He's a Notre Dame law grad, clerked for Judge Hardiman on the Third Circuit. If you recognize that name, it's because he's on President Trump's short list to be on the U.S. Supreme Court. Also clerked for Judge Stephen Murphy of the Eastern District of Michigan. Nick worked under many, many impressive attorneys, including the former Solicitor General of the United States, Paul Clement, was a partner at a number of big firms and worked at Faegre and Benson here in Minneapolis. Did a lot of work for the Trump campaign, including defending President Trump's ballot access on primary ballot access here in Minnesota and across the nation. So he's done a lot of important work, especially in the appellate sphere across the country. And maybe most importantly, he is the happily married father of 11. And it's quite appropriate that we're in a Knights of Columbus Hall because he is a knight. So we're very excited to be here this morning to tell you about the really interesting work of the Upper Midwest Law Center. And I have a clicker, which I got a little too trigger happy on and tried to test earlier. Nick, I think you're tall enough that you're blocking everybody's view if you stand. Okay, perfect. So we wanted to just start by telling you a little bit about the background of the Upper Midwest Law Center. We were founded in 2019 by Dr. Doug Seaton, who is now managing us from both Minnesota and Florida, where he wisely goes during the winter months. And Dr. Seaton is also a really impressive labor law attorney who basically built his career busting corrupt unions in Minnesota, which, as you can imagine, is a hero's job in this part of the country. And he's a graduate of Princeton and has a PhD from Rutgers in labor relations. He decided to form the Upper Midwest Law Center basically to take on the establishment in Minnesota, knowing this would be a difficult environment in which to challenge the status quo, but deciding basically he was going to stand and fight in a place like Minnesota, and has been remarkably successful. So we are a nonprofit public interest law firm. We don't charge our clients one penny. And we're able to do that because of generous donations from people like you, and I'll talk more about that at the end of our presentation. We also work cooperatively with the leading think tank in the Upper Midwest. I'm sure you've heard of it, the Center of the American Experiment. And we've been going strong for about 7 years now. So I want to tell you a little bit of our litigation, a little bit about our litigation team, which is, I would say, small but mighty. And at the helm, of course, is Dr. Seaton. Nick leads all of our appellate work. I am heading up our litigation work, along with Brent Robbins. Brent is also a Yale grad, Vanderbilt Law. He was slated to become the general counsel of General Mills. which, as you know, is a Fortune 200 company, and had built his career there for about 30 years, and then decided it was time to join the movement. And so really kind of gave up what could have been a very lucrative continuing career where he would have made probably 20 times more than he's making right now to join us. And if you recognize his last name, yes, he is the husband of Representative Kristen Robbins. I love saying that. And will be a great first gentleman. I'm saying that in my private capacity, of course, in about another year. And has done a lot to help her as well as work at UMLC. Alexandra Howell is another litigation attorney, and like Nick, she also clerked for 2 federal judges, both of whom are also on President Trump's shortlist, Judge David Strauss of the 8th Circuit and Judge Diane Sykes of the 2nd Circuit. She's also a Notre Dame law grad and went to Hillsdale undergrad and has just been burning up the tracks for us on both litigation and appellate work. Austin Lissy is our junior associate who graduated from Chicago Kent, has been with us since he was a law clerk and just stayed with us from the summer on through. And he works remotely with us from Chicago, although we keep trying to convince him to join us in Minneapolis. Sue Nesheim and Cynthia Cajun are our staff support. Cynthia was actually introduced to us as a client and then liked working with UMLC so much she came on as a paralegal, and Nick is going to tell you a little bit more about her case. And Susan has been Doug's assistant for more than 40 years, which I'm sad to say is longer than most American marriages last in this country, but they've been together for a long, long time, and smart people know you don't mess with Susan in our office. Our board is comprised of people whose names you will well recognize being active in Republican circles. Ron Ebensteiner, of course, heads up Windcrest Capital. He's the chairman of the Center of the American Experiment, former state chair of the Minnesota Republican Party. John Hinderaker, also a lawyer by training, practiced at Faegre and Benson for decades, and is now the president of the Center of the American Experiment. And Robin Kelleher, who was Dr. Seaton's partner at his law firm and practices in labor and employment law and does a lot with us to help fundraise and basically keep us funded so that we can continue to offer our services at no cost to clients. We have an advisory legal panel of names that, again, you may recognize: Alec Beck, John Halpern, Tom Kelly, Dan Kleinberger, Rick Morgan, and Chuck Spevacek. So our mission is to basically stand and fight in Minnesota and beyond, and we are happy to take cases that go beyond Minnesota, but our focus is definitely here because there's plenty of work to do right here in Minnesota. We work to uphold the rule of law and keep big government in check. There are many areas in which we could focus, but if I had to pick the top 3 in which we specialize, it would be resisting government overreach and specializing in maintaining separation of powers, exposing and fighting union corruption, and standing for religious freedom. So we want to tell you a little bit about our case updates, and we think you'll find this particularly interesting. We picked basically 5 that we think are representative of the work that we do, and if I had to think of a theme for how well we're doing, we punch above our weight, and we win a lot. Do you recognize this clip?
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I love him.
So Rachel lets me do the fun job and tell you all about some of these wins. We've picked a couple that have already been wrapped up and that have been our headliners over the past few years, and I've got a few here that are ones that we're fighting now. So let me tell you about about some of our big cases over the years. One is our, defunding the police litigation. We heard from Ron earlier about the Minneapolis City Charter and some of the issues that came up around the death of George Floyd, and whether we were going to defund the police, right? So the Upper Midwest Law Center was in the middle of that in one sense, in that we looked at the Minneapolis City Charter right in the middle of the defund the police litigation, and noticed, gee, it says in here that Minneapolis has to have a police department, and has to there's even a formula that says you have to have so many police officers for 1,000 residents in Minneapolis. So we thought, boy, if they want to defund the police, they're going to be violating the charter. We filed a lawsuit about it, and we won even in the Minnesota Supreme Court, which said, yeah, Minneapolis has to have a police department. So if you're glad that there's still a Minneapolis Police Department, you can thank the Upper Midwest Law Center for that. Interesting, thing about this case is that it actually shows the need for careful lawyering and people who look at these things hard. The Minneapolis City Charter was revised or reworded, I think, in maybe the 1980s or a little bit after that. If you pull up the website, for what does the Minneapolis City Charter say, you actually won't find the language that says Minneapolis has to have a police department, because they put it into this sort of plain language, modern language. They didn't mean to change what the charter meant, but they changed the wording, the result of it, I think it was unintended, but the result of it was to make it less clear that Minneapolis really was required to have a police department. So what the intrepid attorneys at UMLC did was went back and looked at the old city charter. What does that one say? Because the law is clear that it hasn't changed. The rules haven't changed. And that was where we saw, wow, this is really clear. Minneapolis has to have a police department. The Minnesota Supreme Court agreed with us. They said, yeah, if you look back at the old language, they definitely have to do this. So a good win for careful lawyering and a good win for our state. Now, as we've all probably heard recently, the Minneapolis Police Department still is not at the number of lawyers it should be at, and I think Rachel's going to talk with you about how we're bothered about that and we want to try to do something about it. But let's go to our, thank you. If you're clicking, Rachel, we can take us to the next one. Thanks. So yeah, next case is the one we're currently working on, which is we're challenging the massive omnibus bill that was passed at the very end of the left-wing trifecta in the legislature a couple years ago in 2024. If you were following the news at the time, you would have seen, again, left-wingers controlled every branch of the government for a couple of years. At the very end of that, the last day to pass legislation in the 2024 session, they had run out of time to get their legislation through for what they wanted to do that year. And so almost literally at the 11th hour, it was something like, 9:42 p.m. on the last day to pass legislation. What they did was they took 9 massive bills that had been working their way through the legislature, and they smashed them all together into what we think is the longest statute ever passed in Minnesota history. It's almost 1,500 pages long, and it covers everything under the sun. This was the one where they said, here's how Uber and Lyft have to pay their drivers. It said private health plans have to cover abortion. It said we've got new housing bills. We have to revise the residential building code so they use 70% less energy. They revised the paid family leave rules. They revised paid sick and safe time. I mean, I could stand here literally all day. When I read this bill, it took me 4 whole work days to do it. It was so long. So, I mean, yeah, sit down with a good novel, right? Basically is what it was like. So, bad stuff in the bill, right? But of course, bad stuff doesn't mean it's illegal stuff, and that's where you need lawyers to come in and figure out, is this legal? Turns out Minnesota's Constitution is like many states. We have what's called a single subject clause, where our Constitution says every law that the legislature passes has to cover just one single subject. I just told you what was in this bill. There is no way that covers a single subject. If it does, then any law you could ever think of would cover a single subject. So we at the Upper Midwest Law Center filed a lawsuit. We sued the state. We sued Governor Walz. We sued everybody else we could figure out to get a complaint served on, to say, yeah, not a single subject. Now this reflects a challenge that we often face, which is, we can identify policy problems we want to solve, And oftentimes we can come up with legal theories where we can say, yeah, we think we've got a chance to win in court and solve the problem this way. But there's a third ingredient that we need to file a winning lawsuit, which is we need a plaintiff. We need somebody who's willing to say, yeah, my name's going to be on this. Yeah, this directly affects me. And yeah, I'm willing to take the heat in the media, with my neighbors, on social media, wherever else, for doing this. Those of us who've joined Upper Midwest Law Center recently have been, I guess we might say, surprised to say it can be hard to find folks like that. Because it's easy to say, I don't like this. It's much harder when you think about, wow, what are people going to say when my name's in the newspaper? What are people going to say about this? Folks have reality checks about this. So we ran into that a little bit with the omnibus bill. We were looking for lots of different plaintiffs to sign up. We found one. We found the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, who was willing to say, and this wasn't even part of the list of all the things that was in the bill that I just gave you, but it banned different kinds of firearms, right, in Minnesota. So one of them was binary triggers, where you pull the trigger, your gun shoots, you release the trigger, it shoots again. Those are now illegal in Minnesota, or they were, because we filed a lawsuit with the Gun Owners Caucus, and we got a district court in Ramsey County to strike down that provision as unconstitutional under the single subject clause. Great win. We were happy about it. We don't think that's nearly enough, because that's one paragraph out of 1,500 pages. We think all 1,500 pages need to go. So we're appealing. We'll be in the Court of Appeals on that in about a month here, asking for that. We're also looking at potentially bringing other lawsuits. The judge in our case said, I'm going to strike down this binary trigger ban. I know that UMLC has asked me to strike down the whole thing. I think that's going to require hundreds of lawsuits to get rid of this whole law. So our thought is, well, maybe we need to bring some of those hundreds of lawsuits, and we'll see. We'll be looking forward to trying to do that. So I'll quickly tell you about some of our First Amendment lawsuits that we've brought. One that I'll be in court in tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact, is Dr. Scott Jensen versus the Minnesota Board of Medical Practice. If you're here in this room, you're probably familiar with Dr. Jensen and his run for governor 4 years ago. What I was not as familiar with, just from watching the news, was the fact that for practically that entire campaign, he was under investigation. His medical license was under investigation by the State Board of Medical Practice. I see the hand up for 5. Yes, 5 different investigations were opened by the State Board of Medical Practice, and every single one of them, they told him, were they investigating how he treated his patients? No. Were they investigating what he has said to his patients? No. They told him right in the letters, the Board of Medical Practice, we're investigating your TV interviews, we're investigating your social media posts, because we don't like that you're criticizing the guy who appointed us, Governor Walz, right, and what the state government is doing. So I look at this when I, join Upper Midwest Law Center, and I think, my goodness, this is the United States of America. This is the kind of thing you hear about happening in, other countries far away that don't have functioning democracies. We have a First Amendment. We have the freedom of speech here in the United States. You're supposed to be able to criticize the government without them taking away your livelihood. So we filed a First Amendment lawsuit on behalf of Dr. Jensen. We got a ruling that we obviously disagree with at the district court, basically saying, well, they didn't actually revoke his medical license, so it's fine that they did this investigation. It's fine that they made him hire a lawyer. It's fine that they made him submit all these things justifying himself. We strongly disagree with that, and we are very hopeful that the appeals court will too. That's what I'll be talking about tomorrow. Next one, let's talk about Black Lives Matter posters, right? This was how our good friend and colleague Cynthia Cajun came to work for us. As Rachel mentioned, she started out as our client, as one of those brave plaintiffs who was willing to step forward and bring a lawsuit. Her school district, which was Lakeville, had a wall in their school somewhere where they let the Black Lives Matter movement put up posters saying Black Lives Matter. Cynthia and her husband thought that it would be good to also have a statement, I think that Blue Lives Matter or something else, or All Lives Matter, something else along those lines, but was told by the school district, oh no, that's not a message that we want to allow here. Now, of course, school districts have some control over what gets said in classrooms, but if they just open it up and say, hey, people can post posters here, which is what they did for the Black Lives Matter movement, they can't pick and choose winners and losers, right? That's where the freedom of speech comes in. So we at UMLC filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Cajuns saying, hey, you know what, if you're gonna let some outside speakers come in and put up posters, you've gotta let the Cajuns do it too. And we reached a settlement in that case that we felt was good at vindicating their rights and getting done what we needed to do. And we now have another well-valued colleague in Cynthia Cajun. Last one I'll tell you about is religious freedom. And in particular, our Northland Baptist Church case. This harks way back to the COVID lockdowns, a time in history that I would like to forget about, but that, you know, some legal issue or other keeps reminding me of it every day, whether it's Dr. Jensen or whether it's this one or whether it's something else. As we all remember, you know, everything was locked down during COVID, at least at the beginning, and then things started opening again. You know, whether it was stores or whether it seemed like everybody was saying they were an essential business. A swimming pool guy told me they were an essential business, and I thought, really? Anyway, I was glad they could operate their business, but a real problem was that churches were not allowed to reopen for a long time, and when they were, it was under severe restrictions. That seemed like a significant problem to a lot of people who wanted to go to church and pray, and it seemed like a significant problem to us at the Upper Midwest Law Center. So we filed a lawsuit saying, wait a minute, you know, churches cannot be the bottom of the barrel, the ones who are regulated the most severely. Under the law that's established, they have to be treated as well, at least as well as everybody else. So if you're going to let people go to the grocery store, if you're going to let people go to the nail salon, if you're going to let people hire people to, you know, maintain their swimming pools, you got to let people go to church. You have to let people call their pastors in to minister to them. You have to let people do these things. We got a pretty good ruling in the district court, and then after some more litigation, we actually managed to enter a public settlement agreement with the state government that said, yeah, we won't do this again. If we let people into grocery stores, we'll let them come into church on the same terms. You can actually look that up online. That'll be, thank you, yeah. So our plan A is to not have any more lockdowns, but God forbid should they happen, we'll be able to get into church on the same terms as any other building. We've got more coming, more important work. We're working hard every day, and I think Rachel's going to tell you about some of the cases we're working up right now.
Thank you, Nick. So as you can see, for such a small firm, we are extremely busy. And we're winning, and we're getting great results even in very difficult jurisdictions, including in Minnesota State Court, where almost all of the judges have been appointed by a Democrat governor. But we're not resting on our laurels. We're still thinking about what's the next big case, what are the next important issues to pursue, what will be important for the people of this state to vindicate your rights and to continue to just be freedom fighters for all of you. And so unfortunately, we used to be a state where we took a lot of pride in our public life and I think in our sense of propriety, and now we are known globally as a land of 10,000 frauds. That is not something that we are happy about at UMLC, and that is something that we are trying to actively fight. The fraud, and I'm sad about what's happening in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Certainly grateful for their leadership as someone who is an alum of that office. For the $9 billion fraud story and counting, there's still more out there. We are hearing about stories of retaliation and abuse against really courageous whistleblowers who came forward to complain about what was happening in the state and who were themselves persecuted for just telling the truth. One of the really sad aspects of this is under Minnesota state law, there is no criminal protection for whistleblowers. So unlike in federal law, whistleblowers are pretty much on their own. If they report and if there's some sort of retaliation, they need lawyers to represent them. And we're putting our hand up and saying we are happy to take that on. And we would, in fact, be proud to represent people who've stood for truth in this cesspool. And so, again, we need your help. If you know of people, whether they work at DHS or they're aware of the fraud or they're aware of fraud yet to come, which I'm terribly afraid of, that we haven't yet heard of, we would love to hear from you. And please feel free. Nicholas and I both have cards, but you can read about us on the web as well. We would love to hear from you. Please get in touch with us if you know of anyone who needs our help. We stand ready and available. We are not happy about what is happening in the city of Minneapolis, and as Nicholas described, the Minneapolis Police Department is still understaffed. So based on current population count, the city of Minneapolis is required to have about 731 police officers. In fact, the number today stands at a little bit over 600. That is well under what the city is required to have. We have reached out to the city and we have expressed our concerns about this, and they are defiant. In fact, they're kind of proud of where they stand right now, and as you can see from nightly news reports, they're overwhelmed. They don't even have enough police to secure evidence at scenes where there has been violent activity. In fact, when DHS came out here a couple of weeks ago for Operation Metro Surge, the number of federal agents dwarfed the number of Minneapolis police officers, and that's just sad. Meanwhile, crime rates are rising. Downtown Minneapolis is still not back. We'd like to do something about this, and we need your help. Are you a resident of the city of Minneapolis? Do you have a business in the city of Minneapolis? And if you can answer yes to either of those questions, would you please come up and talk to us afterwards? Because we would love to have you put your name on a lawsuit to challenge what is happening in what was once a beautiful city that needs to be restored. And finally, as Nick mentioned, this log rolling bill that just has, it's the mother of all disasters in terms of legislative bad stories. We are looking at follow-up challenges, and we're talking to everybody from residential home builders to private businesses about what can be done to challenge the 1,500 or 1,400 page omnibus bill that was passed. So again, if any of the travesties that Nick mentioned impact you or your business or your family, and you think we could help you, we would love to talk to you. So we will both be here and available, and we'll also leave our contact information so that you can get in touch with us if it's not convenient for you to speak to us right after. But we are always on the lookout for good cases, and as he mentioned, good clients who are courageous enough to stand for truth in a difficult environment. But we need your help, and there are at least 3 ways that you can help us. So first of all, we are a 501c3 organization. That means your gifts to us are completely tax deductible. We have some people who send us $5 a month every month, and we are just so grateful that they would think of us that way. So whatever you are able to give, large or small, we would really appreciate you remembering us. We also are always on the lookout for clients, for new cases, and we want to challenge the status quo here. We have not given up on Minnesota. We're grateful for people like Ron Shutz who are willing to enter the fight, and Ron has been fighting even before he became a political candidate on important public policy issues. We're trying to restore the rule of law here in Minnesota. If you have ideas on ways we can do that with good cases, good clients, please, we would really love to hear from you. And finally, we're constantly on the road. I think Mr. Muirhoff was asking me before this presentation, how often do you get out in the community? And between media appearances and community engagements, I'm probably out somewhere between 5 to 6 times a week. it's a big part of what I do, and I love it. I'm an extrovert, as you can probably tell, and I like people. I like engaging with people, but we're constantly seeking ways to meet new people. And so if you have ideas on places that we can speak and meet new friends, you can never have too many friends. So help us meet some of your friends as well. We would be grateful for that. And I think I've probably hit time. Thank you for your attention. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us.
Yeah, they'll be able to answer some of your questions if we've got a few minutes for questions.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Regarding the police department in the city of Minneapolis, they are understaffed. They've been playing that game for a long time. Because the city is Democrat and they just are going to hell. I grew up in Minneapolis. Can the city council play with the numbers? In other words, if they're supposed to have 731 police, can they say, well, yeah, they're on the police force, but they don't go out and actually do police work? Can they play with that, and have they tried to play with that?
The answer to the second question, probably they have tried. Can they? That's something we would ask the courts to decide. This is actually probably a couple steps down the road, because right now everyone agrees they don't actually have the 731 or the 713. So probably step one would be, look, let's at least get to that number, right? And then we can fight about what they're doing. But I mean, as Rachel said, defiance, right, is the attitude. So, there's not a lot of transparency about even the 600 people who are there, what are they doing, right? And these would be things, when you get into a lawsuit, you get tools to discover this stuff, which might be interesting. Anything to add, Rachel?
We need to get to step one, as Nick said.
Hello. Okay, thanks. First question is easy. Rachel, what's your last name?
Paulose.
Paulose. Okay. The next one is.
That was very easy.
I'll get ready for the next one.
Okay.
You're already zeroing in on the fraud that's occurred. But now we have something called paid family and medical leave.
Oh, okay.
So how far into this will you folks have to start investigating this? Because this is going to be like, compared to the fraud we've already seen, that's going to be like a Sunday afternoon pickpocket. And I just wondered if you're prepared for that. Thank you.
So you're touching on a couple of different kinds of problems that we have to deal with. One problem that we frequently run into is, well, is this a problem that you can solve with the litigation tool, or is it a problem that really has to be solved at the ballot box, right? Justice Scalia, a great hero of many of ours, likes to say that I wish, as a Supreme Court justice, that I had a stamp that I could put on laws that would say stupid but constitutional, right? Because we live in a free country. We can, if we want to vote for people who are going to do stupid things, we can. So that's one question: is can we fix a problem by pointing out that it's illegal, or do we have to say this is just a really bad idea? Now, another problem, is there going to be fraud in people taking leave? Sure seems like it, right? Because it's sort of an open door in the same way that some of the state programs are. But another problem we run into is, how do we make a precedent? How do we aggregate the litigation so that we can actually solve a problem with the lawsuit? You can recover from one person who's committing fraud, right? But how do you stop the fraud going forward? How do you fix that problem, right? So that's something that we'd be looking at. I'm going to be honest, I don't have the answer on this one yet, right? So and sometimes there is no answer, right? Sometimes it goes back to the ballot box. And then of course there's the finding the plaintiff and making it work that way as well. We are looking at it, for sure. My boss tells me to say, which is true.
Yes, sir.
So, speaking of stupid but constitutional, what about sanctuary cities and sanctuary state? Is there anything we can do about that? It's ridiculous that we don't work together, local law enforcement with federal. Are we heading to a civil war or what?
Well, God forbid that we should be headed to a civil war. I mean, it's a really interesting question, and I think I've spoken a lot about this to the media. I think that issue was squarely presented in the lawsuit that Attorney General Ellison has filed against the Trump administration to stop Operation Metro Surge. I wish that there were a way for UMLC to challenge that, but unfortunately I don't think there's really you have to have a thing called standing to file a lawsuit in federal court. You have to have a way to demonstrate that you have a personal stake in it that's beyond kind of a theoretical interest. And so really it has to be the government that challenges that. And right now you've got the state and the federal government at loggerheads with each other. But we agree, and it's a concern of ours. And I think in some ways the police defunding suit that we brought to restore funding and staff to the city of Minneapolis was our way of, in one way, challenging the sanctuary city policies. But it's a serious problem. And I spoke on a call about this, I think it was last week, to our donor base, and one of the things I said was, we thought this question was settled with a civil war. States, there are certain areas where federal law is supreme, including in immigration enforcement. That really should not continue to be a fight today.
So I have a question before I pass it on to you. I noticed on the omnibus bill, it mentioned that there's a statute of limitations. Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah, so a statute of limitations is the legislature says, hey, if something bad happens to you, we don't want you waiting 30 years, 40 years to come into court about it. People forget what happened. It's hard to prove after that long of a time. And also people need to understand, need to have some idea of what they might be liable for or not be liable for. An issue that's come up with statutes of limitations recently is when there have been child sex abuse scandals, and whether it's a church or whether it's the Boy Scouts or whoever else, legislatures will be upset about this and will pass a statute saying, yeah, we know this stuff happened 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. We're going to reopen the statute of limitations and let people file suit again anyway, even though they would have been time barred before. So you may have seen it in the news that way. But to challenge a statute, to sue in court and say, hey, this statute is no good, I want the court to strike it down. In Minnesota, the standard time period is 6 years. So that would be sort of the time limit for a 2024 omnibus bill. Obviously, that would give a few years yet, right? Now, the state is arguing on appeal, in our case, that the time limit should be much shorter, and to be honest, they're kind of making it up, and they're asking the courts to make it up and to say that, well, you really only get a few months to do this, and the time window's closed already. But those are the issues in play.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, your guys' battle that you're going on from saving Minnesota is just such reassuring, and just really does my heart good. So thank you very much. One thing I find that I keep looking for, that I find a lot of people that are good-intentioned people, that it seems like a topic that doesn't come up. They don't want to address it, and that is voter fraud. I'm going to throw out some things here, whether they're perfectly correct or not, but it seems like we have a lot of things that go against really having election integrity in Minnesota, such as driver's license for everybody. I became an election judge because I wanted to understand it a little bit more. And the first thing in my training, they talked about the voucher program, which I raised a red flag for me, and I watched it in practice. The person that that vouches for them doesn't have to show really any credentials that they're even legit who they're vouching for. I mean, that they are a voucher. So then they can vouch for 8 people, and then those 8 people can go vouch for people. And if you see that before elections, that the 300,000 people are all of a sudden new voters. right before the election. Again, the license that I talked about, the Medicare, if you're an illegal immigrant, you get Medicare, and that they can vote in elections. It just goes on, the number of the things that you can stack up. That's something that people don't attack. Now, the Republican Party is asked, well, give us more money so we can go door knock to try to get more people to be Republicans. Well, I'm going, well, what does it matter? I mean, you can get more people maybe to vote for Republican, but if they can cheat, they can always add as many as they need to win the election. But why isn't that is something that we want to, that we can bring to light and try to improve on?
I'm really glad you asked, because this is something that we're actually looking very hard at. If you follow us in the news, you'll probably see in the next couple of months, we likely will be launching a couple of lawsuits related to election integrity. We're looking to, without giving away any secrets here, we're looking to secure voter rolls. We're looking to actually help election judges get into polling places. Thank you for those of you who said you are election judges. We're looking to expand that access. And I think that's really important. I mean, people, because there are many people who share your concerns and who feel like what's going on with our elections. I think one of the top things they can do, get in there, be there, sitting there when the votes are being counted, so you can see what's going on, and raise the red flag if you see something. So we're looking to expand those opportunities as well, and we hope to be filing litigation about that soon.
I've long had the impression that the trial and conviction of Derek Chauvin and the other Minneapolis police officers was a case of injustice. Are you looking at that at all, or is there anything that we can do?
That is not something that we would be able to look at because he's being represented by other attorneys right now, but I'm aware that there are other people representing him in that situation. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question for you, just something that I think you should focus on, something other than the police officer thing, because the way Minneapolis is bleeding residents, they're going to be down to that level where the number of police they have now.
I'll move my 11 children in and we'll fix that problem.
Yes, sir.
To the person who was talking about Derek Chauvin's case, yes, it was a horrible injustice. He does have an attorney. It is being represented to the court, and there are little cards at the back table where you can give, send, go directly to his legal fund. Pick one up on your way out. Send him some money, because the first one was paid for by the police union. Anything after that, he has to cover. So I've been giving these cards out for 3 years. Pick one up on your way out and send him some money. It's coming back up in trial, but it's much different. They have to bring new evidence, new cases, new points of interest. So it's a challenge, but it is moving forward, and he does have a good attorney. Pick that up and make him happy.
Yes.
I'm a taxpayer in Minnesota, and I'm wondering if it's possible to do a lawsuit against our leaders for allowing the fraud to happen and recoup some of our tax dollars.
So we have actually looked at that theory of the law when Nick mentioned the kinds of things that we need to bring a lawsuit. One is a viable theory, and it's, again, without giving too much away, it's difficult under the legal strictures that we have to just say in general that a taxpayer has standing to challenge fraud. So that's why we're looking specifically at whistleblowers and people who have tried to expose the fraud and been punished for speaking the truth. We think that's the best chance for a winning lawsuit right now. But I appreciate your speaking up, and I wish more people who had spoken up were listened to years ago. Thank you so much again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. We're really blessed to have you both come this morning. Okay. four old friends were walking down the street. They were senior citizens, and they saw this sign. The sign said, "Old Timers Bar, all drinks are 10 cents. They said, "Come on, I can't believe that. What the heck? Let's go in and check it out." They walk in, and it looks like a really nice, attractive bar, very comfortable. They sit down, and the bartender walks up and asks what he can serve them, and they said, "Oh, we'd like 4 martinis." And they watched him make it, and he pulls out the most expensive gin that he has, Hendrix or something, and then he cools it down. The temperature's just perfect. So he's a couple of olives swimming in that gin, and in any case, he serves them 4 drinks, and he says, "That'll be 40 cents. And they almost fell off their bar stool. They thought, this can't be for real. And they drank up their drink, and they thought, "Wow, that's the best martini I ever had. Can we order another one?" He said, "Sure, go right ahead." And they order another one, and 40 cents again. And he says, "Oh, this is really great. Can you tell us why you can do this? I mean, 10 cents a drink?" He said, "I'm actually a tailor. I used to live in Arizona, but I won the lottery last year, and I made $125 million. I always wanted to have a bar, and I'm going to have a good time at the bar." And they said, "Wow, that's just great." And they looked around, and they saw the other people drinking up, and they saw down at the end of the bar, there were 4 guys sitting there, just sitting, not talking, not doing anything, just sitting there. And they said, "Can you tell us why those people are just sitting there?" He said, "Well, you have to understand. They're from Iowa, and they're waiting for half-price drinks at happy hour." In any case, right now, let's have your 2 cents for 2 minutes of time. Does anybody have a special announcement? Yeah, here's one. Can we get the microphone over, please? Here it comes. And thanks for your patience, so that everybody can hear, especially me. Yeah.
My name is Dale Johnson. I'm on the executive committee for SD 51 Republicans. That's right here where we are. And I have little flyers back there. We are having a fundraiser to earn money so that we can support candidates in the east half of Bloomington. There's on the back, and if you want to ask me about it, we are going to have Rich Stanek, who was a former sheriff in Hennepin County. He is going to come and talk to us about the difference between what a sheriff can do, what a city police can do, what the federal government does. Because right now, if you're watching the news, at least in Minneapolis, it's just a hodgepodge, and people don't know what's going on. They have different powers and different abilities. So come to this fundraiser, support Republicans in this half of Bloomington, and hear from a guy who's been doing this for 40 years. He is a senior advisor of corporate security advisors. He was been a Hennepin County sheriff. He was a Minneapolis police officer. He is State of Minnesota Public Safety and Director of Homeland Security Commission, Senior Law Enforcement Advisor to the Director of the National Intelligence, Senior Law Enforcement Advisor to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Senior Law Enforcement Advisor to the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and he also was in the Minnesota House of Representatives. He has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a Master of Arts in Public Administration, Certificate in Human Resources Management, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations National Executive Institute graduate. Come and hear him. You're going to be $20. That's going to be great spent, and you will learn things about how to deal with it when your neighbor says, "Well, why didn't they do this? And why didn't they do that?" You'll have the ability to know what these different agencies do, and he's a great speaker.
Thank you. Is there somebody else that has a special announcement?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah, and I'm with Senate District 50 Republicans. I'm also working on the Adam Shorzy for Senate campaign. So a couple announcements. First, if anyone's interested, there's some invitations up there. We're having an event February 19th. It's a cocktail party. So $50 donation to the campaign. You can have some orders and cocktails. It's a home in Hopkins. Secondly, Adam's going to be on Swipe Red, so if anyone's on there, look for his campaign. We'd love your help. Thirdly, we have a group of seniors doing mailings for Adam. If you're interested in being in that group and helping address envelopes, let me know. Fourthly, if you're going to be a state delegate and Adam Shorzy's your guy, we will be giving hats to everybody that's going to be a delegate to Shorzy at the state convention. So just want to let you know those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, folks, we still have our prize drawing, and I just wanted to make sure I tell you about next time. First of all, I want to make it clear that the best way to keep things rolling is through you. If you'll bring a friend, a neighbor, bring anybody you can with you. That's going to make our group grow. In addition, if they're unsure about coming, hey, our meetings are on the website, and ours will be. This meeting this morning is going to be posted this afternoon, so you'll be able to find it. I want to make sure you know about next month will be March 10th meeting, and our speaker. I mean, this is really special. Our speaker is going to be Senator Rudy Boschwitz. If you have heard him speak about magnificent America, you know wild horses couldn't keep you away from coming back, and if you haven't heard it, you gotta come. And if there's one meeting you're going to hear Rudy Boschwitz talk about magnificent America. We are exceptional. So let's have our prize drawing. Al, would you pull that out? Okay, the first one is the last four numbers are 6615. Here we got a winner. Come on up. And the second winner, you're all winners, but this is 6655. Where's that winner? Okay, I'll get it in just a second here. There is not a 6655. Well, let's get another one here. Let's see how this turns out. 6668. There we go. Okay. Right, you want to take care of that, Al? Keep the faith, folks. We're going to win in this November. We'll see you next month. Drive carefully, and God bless you all. By the way, I forgot to tell you, I wrote a book on reverse psychology. Don't read it.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota. For more information, please visit RepublicanSeniorsMN.com. While visiting our website, you can click on the video tab to watch videos of past meetings. Also, look for other tabs that bring you to our live player and other video programs. Or, on YouTube, search for Republican Seniors of Minnesota